Hey everyone, Mr. Sujano here, your source for gaming, tech, emulation, and open source news. Let's get started. Alright, we'll kick things off talking about the Raspberry Pi, and it turns out the Raspberry Pi Foundation is going public. Yes, you're going to be able to buy shares of this company in the near future. If you are curious about this one, I'll drop a link to the investor relations page in the description below and feel free to check it out. It doesn't look like the initial price for these stocks is going to be cheap at all, and it does raise a few concerns that I have. So they initially announced a price of 280 pence per share, and now that price is over 400p. I'm not sure if this is artificially inflated or if the shares are actually worth that. Additionally, it makes me wonder about the future of the Raspberry Pi. I mean, Pi prices have been going up over the years, and now with shareholders in control, is that going to change things even more dramatically? I'm wondering if there's going to be design changes, price changes, and ultimately direction changes for the company. So let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below. Do you think Raspberry Pi going public is a good thing? And what are your thoughts about the shares? And speaking about the Pi, next up we're talking about Take Udon and their $99 Mr. board that's currently in development. Things appear to be going very well for development of this board, and Take Udon has finally shared the name of it, Mr. Pi. The problem I have with this is that it's got nothing to do with the Raspberry Pi. However, it appears the naming convention that Take is basing this on follows along the lines of the Orange Pi, Banana Pi, Rock Pi, and more. Let me know your thoughts about the name of this in the comments below. I mean, based on comments on that tweet, it appears the name may be a bit controversial or unpopular. Now, based on the images that Take is posting, and I'd guess this name is probably going to be staying considering it's already printed on the SBCs. And continuing to talk about the Raspberry Pi, this one's a quick one. We're talking about AlmaLinux. AlmaLinux aims to be a production-grade enterprise operating system, and they just announced support for the Raspberry Pi 5. If you are curious about this one and wanted to learn more about it, I'll drop a link to it in the description below and feel free to check it out. They even have a small blog on here talking about their challenges of making a kernel for it. Moving on, and we're talking about ProjectArcade, and ProjectArcade just got a brand new update. Now, for those who may not be aware, ProjectArcade is a software for 64-bit versions of Windows designed for retro gaming and running various emulators of gaming systems. It's based on Emulation Station and RetroBat. So at the time of filming, version 1.6.0 has just dropped. They've got minor bug fixes, they've updated emulator launcher, they've updated the emulators. They added an arcade GUI, a user-friendly interface for managing ProjectArcade configuration. They've added new boot animations, they've added new background music, and they've added new frames for emulators and much, much more. And speaking about free and open source stuff, next up we're talking about Commodore 64 emulator on Windows, Hox's 64. I think I said that right. Hox's 64 just got a brand new update. Now, admittedly, yes, this update is pretty small, but at the same time, it's the first update that Hox's 64 has received in a year, and they fixed save states on it. Next up, we're talking about Doom on the SNES, and it appears the source code for this game has been preserved. It's up on archive.org. So the description says on this one, complete Doom FX SNES source code, Amiga backup. These backup disks were created by Randy Linden and obtained from Jeff Hughes, both former employees of Sculptured Software. After some speed bumps, I've successfully recovered the data from them. This is the complete source code for Doom on SNES, including modern code and assets. If you are curious about this one and wanted to learn more about it, I'll drop a link to it in the description below and feel free to check it out. Next up, we're talking about a very interesting emulator. We've talked about this one before, but it's Red Viper. For those who may not be aware, this is a Virtual Boy emulator for the Nintendo 3DS. It seems almost like a perfect pairing. So at the time of filming, version 0.9.5 is the latest update, and this one is all about customizing controls. They've added a new custom control scheme, and they say in the custom control scheme, any 3DS button can be mapped to any Virtual Boy button. Toggle and turbo modes are available for each button. They've added remapping option to the 3DS D-pad in preset mode. And virtual buttons on the touchscreen can now be set to the face buttons by default, and the switch button can now be turned off. Next up, we're talking about Atari 2600 emulation with Gopher 2600, and this is an emulator written in Go. So at the time of filming, version 0.32.0 just dropped, and I would argue this is a big update for this emulator. I mean, under improvements, they've added in artifact-free rendering, a ROM select window. They've added mappers for prototype ROMs. Under television improvements, they say screen size dimensions fixed at a ratio of 4:3. They've improved VSync and synchronization options. They've renamed some things, for example, motion screenshots are now called flicker. There's a whole bunch of bug fixes and even more. If you use Go for 2600, it may be worth updating. Next up, we're talking about Capcom, and Capcom had a poll on their website with over 250,000 votes, and the results are very interesting. So for question 1, which of the following Capcom games do you like the best? Dino Crisis is sitting in number 2. I was shocked at this. I mean, when you take a look at the choices, I figured Monster Hunter would be taking this one by a mile. However, it appears the popularity for Dino Crisis was driven by people over 30. For people under 30, Dino Crisis was sitting in 7. Now, things get even crazier for question 5. Are there any Capcom game series, including spin-off games, that you would like to see get a sequel or new game? And number 1 is Dino Crisis by a very wide margin. I would argue this was up against some stiff competition. I mean, Mega Man, Devil May Cry, Resident Evil versus Capcom series, Ace Attorney series, and even more. And this time around, it wasn't just people over the age of 30 driving these results. If we take a look here from 10 to 20s, Dino Crisis is also sitting in number 2. Let me know your thoughts about this survey in the comments below, and I'll drop a link to the survey in the description below in the event that you wanted to check it out. Next up, we're quickly talking about Star Wars Outlaws, and Star Wars Outlaws has been met with a bit of critique from people who have gotten their hands on it. If you are curious about this one and wanted to see some gameplay, there's almost a 30-minute video up on YouTube. I'll drop a link to it in the description below. Now, reportedly, the creative director says Star Wars Outlaws can be finished in about 30 hours. And in regards to some of the negative feedback they've gotten about the demo, they say they think they have a very compelling overall game and just a part of it is represented here. Moving on, and we're talking about the very simplistic clicking game on Steam, Banana. And this game has been extremely popular. I was very curious as to why, and I think we finally got our answer. So for reference, all you do in this game is click a banana, and every now and then you get a reward. You can possibly sell the reward on Steam for maybe a couple of cents, maybe more depending on the rarity of it. And anyways, here, there's over 260,000 players as a peak all time, and people playing this game right now are 255,000 players. This game is popping off, and it doesn't make sense. However, it appears to actually make sense, literally. I'll drop a link to this Polygon article in the description below, and feel free to check it out. It appears this game is overrun with bots, clicking automatically to get those rewards. So the article quotes something right from Banana's Discord chat. Unfortunately, we are currently facing some problems around botting, since the game basically takes 1% to no resources of your PC. People are abusing up to 1,000 alternative accounts in order to get rarer drops, or at least drops in bulk. So I guess there you have it, and I'm assuming that interest for this and prices for this and the infinite money glitch is going to die down once people stop being interested in these banana rewards. Next up, this one's a real quick one, but a real good one if you're a fan of Dragon Age. Dragon Age the Veilguard just got a 20-minute gameplay trailer up on YouTube. I'll drop a link to it in the description below. I'm not gonna lie, the game actually looks pretty darn good. However, it appears there are some complaints about the large amount of neon in this game. Let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below. Next up, we're talking about a brand new Resident Evil mod or fan project in development. It's called Resident Evil 2x3 Crossover Mod, Lament of the Graveyard Rats. They say this one is from Brad Vickers' point of view, and there are movable cameras. If you are curious about this one, I'll drop a link to it in the description below. There's no release date for it just yet. Next up, this one is crazy and would have blown people's minds back in the day and is kind of blowing my mind now. We're talking about PlayStation 1 emulation on the Sega Dreamcast. I am not joking with you here. The emulator is called Bloom. It's currently in early development, and it's based on PCX Rearmed. Now, this is obviously going to require a modified Dreamcast in order to run, and I think I just said Bloom was based on PCX Rearmed instead of saying PCSX Rearmed. Anyways, here Bloom will have hardware CD support, including original discs, even the copy-protected ones. It uses HLE emulation for the BIOS. No BIOS file is required. Bin and Q and CCD image, MDS, MDF, ISO, PPB images are supported. CHD support can be enabled but isn't recommended. Fully software rendered for now. Compatibility should be very good. and they say it's slow, not a feature. If you are curious about this one, someone's got a video of it up and running on Twitter, and I'll drop a link to it in the description below, and feel free to check it out. And speaking about stuff in early development, next up we're talking about Nozomi, which is a brand new Nintendo Switch emulator. Now, as far as I know, Nozomi is based on Yuzu, and also as far as I know, this is not ready for prime time just yet, and it may be a very long time before it is. However, it is up on GitHub, and if you are curious and wanted to poke around and learn more about it, I'll drop a link to it in the description below, and I guess feel free to check it out. Next up, we're talking about Dreamcast emulation with Flycast Dojo. Flycast Dojo is a fork of Flycast designed around multiplayer, and it just got a very big update. So at the time of filming, this is just a pre-release, but the latest update is Flycast Dojo 6.26. And they've introduced relay servers. Now, there are currently 7 relay servers available, and relay servers can be a great option if P2P connections are not working out. Now, this may not work perfectly just yet. It's currently in development and currently in early release of it. And last up here, we're talking about something that has caused quite the controversy, and it's the partnership between OpenAI and Apple. Apparently, they're going to be integrating ChatGPT into Apple experiences, coming to iOS, iPadOS, and macOS. Now, Elon Musk may have a biased opinion about this because arguably he's got a problem with OpenAI in general, but at the same time here, he does say something that makes sense. So he says if Apple integrates OpenAI at the OS level, then Apple devices will be banned at my companies. That is an unacceptable security violation. And OpenAI says privacy protections are built in when accessing ChatGPT within Siri and writing tools. Requests are not stored by OpenAI, and users' IP addresses are obscured. Users can also choose to connect their ChatGPT account, which means their data preferences will apply under ChatGPT's policies. Now, ChatGPT has been in the news a bunch of times, and not for all great things in its short existence. I would hope that this is an optional thing for iPhone and Apple users in general, and it's not something that's completely baked in. Let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below. But anyways, that is all I've got for you in this one. Straight to the point, all stuff and no fluff. We talked about a bunch today. Let me know your thoughts about absolutely any of it in the comments below. If you like this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button. Check out my other videos. Don't tempt fate. Save your state.